Who is Lionel Messi?
Well, that is the big question, right?
It really is. Welcome to English Podcast Football Legends. We are so glad you are joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely. And, our goal here is to help you improve your English while you discover the inspiring stories of, well, football's absolute greatest legends.
Exactly, because you do not need boring traditional lessons to learn. By just listening to our natural conversations, you will naturally improve your English listening skills, your vocabulary, and even your American English pronunciation.
Right. And it helps build speaking confidence, too. You get to hear everyday expressions used in real context.
Yeah, natural conversation skills are so important. And today, we are doing a really deep dive into a story that is honestly about so much more than just football.
Oh, for sure. It is a story of perseverance, humility, and incredible resilience, like bouncing back from really tough situations.
And discipline. Plus the power of family support, and just believing in your dreams. We are going to look at how a young boy from Rosario, Argentina, who struggled with a really serious medical condition, became arguably the greatest football player in history.
Yeah, a guy who won the FIFA World Cup, inspired millions, and is still building his legacy all the way through the end of the 2026 FIFA World Cup.
It is wild. So today we are sharing emotional stories, some really surprising hidden facts, and those unforgettable matches that defined his career.
Along with some really valuable life lessons for you, the listener.
So let's just jump right in. I want you to imagine something. Imagine you are 10 years old.
Okay, 10 years old.
And you are only 4'2". Like, you are tiny, your classmates completely tower over you.
Right.
And when you play football, the other kids just bump you off the ball with a tiny drop of their shoulder. But the hardest part is at night, every single night. Before you go to sleep, you have to uncap a needle.
Oh, man.
Yeah. You sit on your bed and you inject synthetic hormones directly into your own leg.
Which is terrifying for a kid.
Exactly. And you do this knowing that the medicine in your refrigerator costs like $1,000 a month. You watch your parents sit at the kitchen table, quietly panicking over bills they just cannot pay.
And you endure all of that physical pain and mental stress just so you can grow to the size of an average person.
Right. We usually look at these sporting legends and we just assume their success was, inevitable, like it was always going to happen.
Yeah, we see the trophies and the money, and we think their path was super easy from day one.
But for this kid from Rosario, that is just completely false. Today, we are opening up a massive stack of sources. We have medical histories, biographies, rare interviews. We want to uncover the deeply human story behind the myth.
Because, honestly, the margins for error in his story are microscopic, tiny.
So small.
We are looking at a kid who faced massive biological hurdles and just terrible institutional incompetence from clubs. If even one of his support systems collapsed, the player we know today just would not exist.
Which makes this whole timeline so fascinating. So let's start at the very beginning. June 24th, 1987.
Right.
We are in a working-class neighborhood called Las Heras in the city of Rosario, Argentina.
And to really understand Messi, you have to understand Rosario. It is this big industrial powerhouse, a port city that relies heavily on steel manufacturing.
Right. So it is a place with an immense work ethic. People work really hard for everything they have.
Exactly. It is not a city of huge privilege. His father, Jorge, was a department head at a steel manufacturer called Asindar, and his mother, Celia, worked in a magnet manufacturing workshop.
So they were managing a really busy, tight-knit household, 4 kids.
Yeah, and Leo was a third child, so he grew up in a very grounded environment. Survival and success were measured by, shifts worked and bills paid.
And young Leo is playing on these unpaved streets, rough, bumpy dirt pitches with his older brothers, Rodrigo and Matias.
And his cousins, too.
Yeah. But he is noticeably much, much smaller than everyone else, so his brothers give him a nickname. They call him La Puga, which translates to the flea.
The flea, yeah.
Which sounds like normal older brothers just making fun of him, right?
Yeah.
But let's talk about the biomechanics of that, like the way his body actually moved.
It is actually a huge factor.
Right, because playing on uneven dirt against bigger, stronger kids when you are so tiny, how does that physically change a player?
Well, it creates a totally different neuromuscular adaptation. Basically, his brain and his muscles learned a unique way to move. When you are that small, using brute force is totally useless.
Because if you try to push a bigger kid, you just bounce off them.
Exactly. You go flying. So his brain learned to prioritize balance and anticipation. A dirt pitch is really unpredictable. The ball bounces everywhere.
So we had to keep it close.
Right. To survive getting tackled, he developed this running stride, where his foot touches the ball almost every single time he takes a step. His center of gravity was incredibly low.
Meaning he could stop and change direction in milliseconds.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
The physics of his playing style were forged purely out of his biological disadvantage. He had to be quicker in his mind because his body couldn't handle a physical collision.
That makes so much sense. I mean, he is basically a tiny sports car weaving through traffic, while the older kids are these big, heavy trucks.
That is a great way to describe it.
And everyone associates that style with pure Argentine street football. But our sources actually reveal a massive twist in his family history.
Oh, the genealogy thing. This is fascinating.
It really is. So an Italian genealogy specialist, genealogy being the study of family history, a guy named Fiorenzo Santini spent years tracking Messi's roots.
Right.
The father's side is pretty straightforward. His great-grandfather came from Italy straight to Argentina in 1893, but the mother's side...
That is where it gets crazy.
Yeah. His maternal great-grandfather, a man named Ranieri, boarded a ship in 1899. But he didn't sail to Argentina. He sailed to Brazil.
Specifically to a town called Ribeirão Preto in the state of São Paulo.
And the family lived there long enough to change their Italian last name to Cucitini, so it sounded more Portuguese. And then eventually they moved south to Rosario.
Which is wild.
I have to pause here. For you listening, if you know anything about football, you know Argentina and Brazil have this fierce, almost religious rivalry. Finding out the ultimate symbol of Argentine football has Brazilian roots hidden in his family tree. That is like finding out Superman was secretly born in Gotham City.
It really is ironic. But, it paints a very clear picture of South American immigration back then. People were fleeing poverty in Europe. They just got on whatever ship was available.
Right. Many went to Brazil to work on coffee plantations before moving to Argentina for factory jobs.
Exactly. It really grounds his story in this working-class immigrant hustle, that deep appreciation for family sacrifice. And you see that reflected so heavily in his grandmother, who was also named Celia.
Oh, she is such a huge part of the story.
She really is. She was the one who pushed him onto his first actual football pitch.
Right, at the local Grandoli club. He was only 4 years old. The story goes that the coach was missing a player for a match with the older boys.
And the grandmother basically demanded that they put little Leo on the field.
Even though the coach was terrified the kid was going to get trampled by the bigger boys.
But she forced the issue, and he went out there and completely dominated.
And even today, decades later, every time Messi scores a goal, he points to the sky with both hands. That is a tribute to her. She passed away before he turned 11. She is still his anchor.
Which tells you a lot about his psychology. He isn't playing for fame or money. He is always playing for his inner circle, his family.
Yeah.
If you look at some of the early sources, like this Q&A interview he did with a local newspaper when he was 13.
I love that interview.
It's so normal. They asked him standard questions, and his answers are just a regular kid. His favorite movie was this silly comedy called Baby's Day Out.
Which is hilarious.
Right. His favorite food was just chicken with sauce. He liked reading the Bible. There was no arrogance, no manufactured superstar persona.
He was a completely normal kid who just happened to have this highly abnormal talent. His first youth coach actually went on record saying he quit coaching youth football after working with Messi.
Really?
Yeah, he said he couldn't teach the kid a single thing because Messi just intuitively understood the geometry of the pitch better than any adult.
Wow.
But, all that amazing intuition was about to hit a terrifying biological wall.
Right. The growth hormone deficiency diagnosis, or GHD.
Explain that for us simply. What exactly is GHD?
So GHD happens when the pituitary gland in the brain fails to produce enough of the hormone that controls growth. It affects a bone density, muscle mass, and overall organ development.
So it isn't just about being a little bit short. It is a serious health issue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Dr. Diego Schwartzstein was the endocrinologist who caught it when Messi was 10. And the doctor made it explicitly clear. The goal of the treatment was never to manufacture a football star. It was to allow a child to develop into a healthy adult.
But the treatment itself sounds brutal. We mentioned it in the intro, but this isn't a pill you swallow with breakfast.
No, it requires subcutaneous injections every single day.
Subcutaneous meaning just under the skin.
Right. You take a needle that looks kind of like a pen, you pinch the skin on your thigh, and you inject the synthetic hormone yourself.
For a 10-year-old, the mental barrier of having to hurt yourself every single night must be huge.
It is. But the even bigger barrier was the socioeconomic one, the cost.
Right. Our sources show this treatment cost up to $1,000 a month, or about $1,800 every 2 months out of pocket.
And in late 1990s Argentina, the economy was incredibly unstable. That is a staggering amount of money for a steelworkers family.
So what do they do?
Well, at first, his dad's health insurance through the steel company covered it for about 2 years. But insurance policies have limits. Once that coverage dried up, they faced a financial cliff.
So they naturally turned to his football club, Newell's Old Boys.
Which makes sense. Messi was in their youth system, playing for this famous youth squad called the Machine of '87.
He was a local phenomenon, scoring something like 500 goals in their youth ranks.
Right. And Newell's initially promised to help cover the medical bills.
Yeah.
But then they just stopped paying.
This part makes me so angry. How does a professional club look at a kid producing those kinds of unbelievable numbers and just let him walk away over $1,000 a month?
You really have to understand the chaotic nature of Argentine club finances back then. Youth academies are essentially a volume business.
Meaning they bring in tons of kids hoping just one succeeds.
Exactly. Hundreds of kids. So when a 10-year-old hands them a complex medical bill that will last for years, the bureaucracy just recoils. They didn't see the long-term investment. They only saw the immediate cost.
Plus, they probably assumed he was too small to survive professional football anyway, right?
Yeah, that was definitely a factor. But another club disagreed. River Plate, which is a massive club in Buenos Aires, they scouted him.
And they brought him in for a trial, right? He scored 4 goals in 1 practice game. River Plate was reportedly ready to take him and pay for the treatments, but Newell's blocked it.
Yeah, this is the dark side of youth football. Newell's held his registration, his official player card. They refused to pay for his medicine, but they also refused to release his card to a club that would.
So it was basically a hostage situation over a child's biological development.
It is heartbreaking.
Think about the psychological toll on a preteen boy. He is injecting his leg every night, watching his parents stress over money, and watching his dreams slip away, not because he lacked talent, but because of some office paperwork dispute.
It forces a child to grow up so incredibly fast. He internalizes all that guilt. And that is the exact moment his family realizes the system in Argentina has failed them. They have to look across the Atlantic Ocean.
To Spain. They had some relatives living in Catalonia, which gave them a tiny connection to get a trial at FC Barcelona.
So we're in September of 2000.
Messi is 13 years old. He steps off a plane in Spain, and he is only 4'6" tall. The sources say that when he sat on the bench waiting for his trial, his feet didn't even reach the floor. Yeah, his legs were just dangling. So he goes out, he plays, and he clearly impresses the coaches. But the Barcelona board of directors hesitates. They stall for months.
Put yourself in their shoes for a second. The year is 2000. The global scouting networks we have today didn't exist. Signing a 13-year-old from another continent was highly irregular.
And legally complicated, right? Because of FIFA rules for minors.
Exactly. To sign him, they would have to give his father a job, pay for an apartment, and take on this huge medical expense for a kid who looked like he belonged in elementary school. The financial directors looked at the risk, and it was enormous.
So they drag their feet all the way to December 14, 2000. Jorge, his dad, is exhausted and frustrated. He gives Barcelona an ultimatum. He says, either you commit right now, or we are packing our bags and going back to Argentina.
Which forces a very famous meeting.
Yes. At the Pompeia Tennis Club, Jorge's agents meet with Carlos Rexach, who is Barcelona's technical director, basically the guy in charge of the football side of things.
Right.
Rexach knows the club directors are split on the decision, but he also knows he cannot let this kid leave Spain. The problem is Rexach doesn't have any official club paper on him.
Because they're at a tennis club cafe.
Exactly. So necessity breeds invention. Rexach asks a waiter for a paper napkin, and right there, surrounded by coffee cups, he hastily scribbles a binding contract.
On a napkin.
On a napkin. He writes that, in his capacity as sporting director, he commits FC Barcelona to signing Lionel Messi, taking full personal responsibility.
Let's contextualize this for you listening. This is the equivalent of writing a historic peace treaty on a diner receipt. A multi-billion-dollar football empire pivoting its entire future on a piece of single-ply paper.
It is incredibly poetic. The most fragile, unofficial document securing the most fragile, unofficial prospect.
You know, that napkin was just the beginning. The reality of moving was brutal. The family relocates to Spain, and it's a disaster.
Really? Because we always hear about La Masia, Barcelona's famous academy, like it is this perfect paradise for young players.
We romanticize it, yeah. But the reality was a family being ripped apart. His 5-year-old sister, Maria Sol, was relentlessly bullied at school in Spain because she didn't speak Catalan and couldn't adapt. His mother, Celia, was miserable.
Oh, that is so tough.
So eventually they made a heartbreaking decision. The mother and the siblings went back to Argentina. Leo stayed in a foreign country with just his father.
He is a teenager, separated from his mom and his sister. And remember that registration dispute with Newell's? That meant he wasn't even legally allowed to play in official Spanish league matches yet, only meaningless practice games.
The isolation was profound. He retreated deep inside himself. In the locker room at La Masia, surrounded by these boisterous, loud, local kids, guys like future stars Gerard Piqué and Cesc Fabregas, he essentially stopped speaking.
Really? Completely stopped.
Yeah. Piqué later admitted that for the first several months, the entire team genuinely believed Messi was a mute. They thought he had a medical inability to speak.
Wow. Messi actually admitted later that he would lock himself in his bedroom and try, but he would muffle the sound so his dad wouldn't hear him because he didn't want his dad to feel guilty about the sacrifices they were making.
But slowly, the medical treatment started working. The synthetic hormones did their job. He grew roughly a centimeter a month for 3 years.
Eventually reaching about 5'7".
Right. And once his paperwork finally cleared and he stepped onto the pitch for official matches, that quiet, shy kid turned into an absolute terror.
The pitch became his only way to communicate. All that frustration, the homesickness, the pain of the injections, he channeled it all into his feet.
And nothing captures that raw intensity better than the famous mask game.
Oh, this is a great story. He is playing in the Copa Catalunya youth final. But the week before, he had suffered a fractured cheekbone, a broken bone in his face.
Right, so the medical staff made him wear this thick, bulky plastic protective mask. They told him he could only play if he kept it on.
Which is a huge problem for someone who plays like him.
Exactly. When you dribble by pure instinct, you aren't staring down at the ball. You rely entirely on your peripheral vision, your side vision, to track the tiny movements of the defender's feet. A thick plastic mask completely blocks that lower vision.
So in the middle of the championship match, the mask is annoying him. What does he do? He just unstraps it, throws it onto the sideline, and risks his broken face.
He didn't care.
Nope. And in the next 10 minutes, he scores 2 brilliant goals before the coach furiously subs him out just to protect him from getting his face smashed again.
That kind of drive gets noticed. The senior team starts paying attention. Ludovic Juli, who was a veteran player for Barcelona's main team, remembered the day a 16-year-old Messi was invited to train with the adults.
Yeah, Gulli said this quiet kid was destroying us all. He was dribbling through 4 grown men at a time. The starting defenders were getting anxious about being humiliated by a teenager. Gulli literally called him an alien.
And that alien-like talent was no longer a secret. The rest of Europe was circling. Arsène Wenger, the manager of Arsenal in England, tried to recruit him.
And then Inter Milan in Italy arrived with a massive offer. They offered to trigger his €150 million buyout clause.
A buyout clause being a set price in a contract that forces a team to sell a player if another team pays it.
Right, and $150 million was astronomical for a teenager. Plus, they promised to triple his salary. The Barcelona president at the time, Joan Laporta, confessed it was the only moment he genuinely feared they would lose Messi.
But he stayed. He stayed loyal to the club that paid for his medical needles.
Now, I have to challenge something here. Let's say he does take the money, right? 16-year-old Messi goes to Arsenal or Inter Milan. Given his incredible talent, doesn't he just become the exact same superstar, just wearing a different colored shirt? Talent like that always wins, right?
So I actually strongly disagree with that.
Really? Why?
If he goes to the English Premier League or Italy's Serie A in 2004, the player we know today does not exist. You have to look at the tactical styles of that era.
Okay, break that down for us.
The Premier League in the mid-2000s was intensely physical. It was an era of brutal, crunching tackles and long passes in the air. A 5'7" teenager holding onto the ball would have had his legs kicked to pieces by huge defenders.
And Italy?
Italy was heavily focused on defensive structure and physicality. Barcelona, on the other hand, was the only elite club in Europe teaching something called juego de posición, positional play. They valued passing, geometry, and keeping the ball on the grass over physical size.
Ah, I see.
La Masia was the exact and maybe the only environment where a player with his specific physical traits could survive and flourish safely.
That makes perfect sense. The ecosystem protected the asset until the asset could dominate the ecosystem. And he had a very specific protector waiting for him in the senior squad, didn't he?
He did. When he made his official league debut at 17 in October 2004, the absolute king of world football took him under his wing, Ronaldinho.
Ronaldinho. In fact, Ronaldinho gave the assist for Messi's very first senior goal. This gorgeous scooped pass over the defense, and Messi nonchalantly chips the ball over the goalkeeper. And Ronaldinho immediately starts calling him his little brother.
The psychology of that relationship is so vital. Usually when a global superstar at the peak of his career sees a teenager doing amazing things in practice, ego takes over.
Right, they feel threatened, they freeze the kid out.
Exactly. But Ronaldinho did the exact opposite. He publicly told the press that this teenager was going to be better than him. By bringing Messi into his close social circle, Ronaldinho acted as a shield.
He absorbed all the media pressure.
Yes, it allowed Messi to play purely with joy, rather than feeling the crushing expectation of having to save the club.
But raw joy eventually needs structure, right? And as we move into 2008, a massive shift happens. Pep Guardiola takes over as manager of Barcelona.
This is where pure instinct marries tactical strategy.
Yeah.
Messi himself admitted that before Guardiola, he didn't care about tactics at all. He would just get the ball and try to beat every man in front of him.
Which worked pretty well.
It did. But Guardiola sat him down and taught him the mechanics of space. He taught him how to press intelligently, how to save his energy, and how to use his positioning to hurt the other team without even touching the ball.
This leads to the infamous false nine tactical shift. We hear that term thrown around all the time, but let's actually explain it for the listener. How does moving Messi from the right wing to the center of the pitch completely break a modern defense?
Okay, so a traditional number 9 is a striker who plays very high up the field, physically leaning against the opposing center backs, trying to run behind them.
Right, the big guys in the middle.
Right. But when Guardiola deployed Messi as a false 9, Messi started in that high position. But as soon as Barcelona got the ball, he would drop deep into the midfield,
Creating a huge problem for the defenders.
an impossible dilemma. If the center backs follow Messi into the midfield, they leave a massive hole in the center of their defense for Barcelona's fast wingers to sprint into.
But if they stay back to protect the space,
Then Messi is suddenly standing in the midfield, completely unmarked. He turns, faces the goal, and drives at them with the ball glued to his foot. It created a numerical overload in the midfield that opposing teams literally did not have a mathematical answer for.
it was brilliant. They unleashed this in the El Clasico, the huge rivalry game against Real Madrid in 2009. Barcelona won 6-2 in Madrid's own stadium. It was tactical perfection.
And the statistics that pour out of this era are just difficult to comprehend.
Let's list them off. Over his career at Barcelona, he wins 34 trophies. He scores 672 goals. That is the most any human has ever scored for a single club.
And the absolute peak of this era is the year 2012.
Oh, this is where it gets really crazy.
He scores 91 goals in a single calendar year.
Let's do the math on that for you listening. That means you were scoring almost 2 goals a game every single week for an entire year. No slumps, no injuries, no bad nights. It defies the physical limits of a football season.
And it wasn't just easy goals either. We are talking about plays where he receives the ball 40 yards out, uses a ridiculously quick leg movement to shoot before the goalkeeper could even react, and scores.
He ended up winning the Ballon d'Or, which is the award for the best player on the planet, 8 times. His first came at age 22, and his 8th came at age 36.
That is 14 years of sustained, absolute peak dominance. In a sport that usually physically breaks players by their early 30s, his longevity is just staggering.
Naturally, when an Argentine player exhibits that level of magical dominance, the ghost of Diego Maradona enters the room.
Oh, inevitably.
Because in Argentina, Maradona was not just a great player, he was a deity, a god. And during the 2006-2007 season, Messi seemed to almost actively invite the comparison.
Yeah, he scored a solo goal against Getafe, where he picked up the ball in his own half, dribbled past 5 players, and rounded the keeper. It was a virtual carbon copy of Maradona's famous goal of the century from the 1986 World Cup.
And then, just a few weeks later, he scores a goal with his hand against Espanyol, completely mirroring Maradona's infamous Hand of God goal.
Those moments were breathtaking to watch.
Oh.
But they cemented a comparison that would eventually become a psychological prison for Messi.
Before we get to the national team struggles, though, we do need to neutrally acknowledge a hurdle during his peak Spanish era. Our sources note a highly publicized tax fraud scandal.
Right. It involved Messi and his father concerning the management of his image rights, Factually speaking, the Spanish courts handed down a 21-month suspended sentence and a €2 million fine.
And just to clarify the mechanics of Spanish law for the listener, first-time offenses for non-violent crimes that result in sentences under 2 years are routinely suspended, which is why neither of them served any actual prison time. It was a severe administrative and legal bump in the road.
Yeah, which we note as a matter of public record.
Mhm.
But while he was resolving those issues and dominating in Europe, a storm was brewing across the Atlantic Ocean.
The weight of a nation. This is where the story gets really heavy. Maradona was a loud, passionate, anti-establishment hero who single-handedly dragged Argentina to World Cup glory in 1986.
And Messi was the quiet expatriate, someone living outside his home country who left for Europe when he was 13. For years, the Argentine press and public were ruthlessly critical of him.
They accused him of lacking passion. They said he cared more about his adopted club in Spain than his homeland. They constantly pointed out that he hadn't won a major international trophy.
It is basically psychological torture.
I want you to put yourself in his boots for a second. You are universally recognized by the whole world as the greatest player breathing. You train relentlessly, but your own countrymen write newspaper articles saying you aren't a true Argentine. They question your blood.
The heartbreak reached such a toxic level that in 2016, after missing a penalty kick and losing the Copa America final to Chile, Messi shockingly announced his retirement from international football on live TV.
The pressure had literally broken him.
You see a man completely hollowed out by the expectations of 45 million people.
He did reverse that retirement, of course. He realized he couldn't let his story end in defeat. But the trauma of those repeated near misses built this incredible narrative tension.
And the dam finally broke in 2021.
Yes. Playing against Brazil, inside the Maracana Stadium in Brazil, the most hostile territory possible, Argentina wins the Copa America.
Ending a 28-year trophy drought for the nation. The footage of him collapsing to his knees when the final whistle blows, you can visually see a decade of suffocating pressure just leave his body.
But the Copa America was just the warm-up for the ultimate catharsis, the 2022 FIFA World Cup in Qatar.
By 2022, Messi is older. He doesn't have the explosive speed of his 22-year-old self. So this tournament became a masterclass in energy management and tactical brilliance.
He spent large portions of matches literally walking around the pitch, just walking.
Right, but he was scanning the defense, utilizing all those lessons Guardiola taught him years ago, finding the one pocket of open space that would prove fatal to the opposition.
And it culminated in what many people call the greatest World Cup final ever played, against France. He scores twice. He scores his penalty in the shootout. He wins the Golden Ball as the tournament's best player.
And he finally lifts the one trophy that eluded him. He gave an interview afterwards saying that this was the final piece, that he had finally achieved total peace.
The ghost of Maradona was finally laid to rest. He didn't just match the deity, he became one.
The transition from a club legend to a national deity was complete. And remarkably, our sources indicate his international story extended even further. He went on to participate in his 6th FIFA World Cup in 2026.
Where he tied the all-time scoring record. The longevity required to impact 6 different World Cup cycles over 20 years is just physiologically absurd.
It really is.
So we have charted the rise of this global icon, a man whose left foot dictates the emotional state of entire continents. But as we pivot to his off-pitch life, the most shocking revelation from our sources is just how profoundly normal he is.
Right. Who is the man when he takes off the boots?
Exactly. The contrast between his public reality and his private life is staggering. He is arguably the most recognizable human being on the planet, yet he operates with the domestic quietness of an accountant.
In 2017, he married Antonella Roccuzzo.
And this isn't some flashy Hollywood romance. They are childhood sweethearts. They met in Rosario when he was just 5 years old because she is the cousin of his best friend.
There's a story that when they were older, Antonella tragically lost a close friend in a traffic accident. Messi, who was deep into his career in Spain at the time, just dropped everything and flew all the way back to Argentina simply to be by her side.
That level of devotion anchors him. Together, they have 3 sons, Tiago, who is 13, Matea, who is 10, and apparently the mischievous troublemaker of the house, and Ciro, who is 8.
And all 3 boys are currently enrolled in the Inter Miami Youth Academy.
Despite the billions of dollars and the global fame, his daily routine revolves around the school run. He loves traditional Argentine asado, which is barbecue. He eats birthday cake. But the real key to this normalcy is how he structures his business.
Yeah, this is so important. He hasn't surrounded himself with Hollywood agents or TR gurus. The operation is strictly blood.
Family.
Exactly. His father, Jorge, is his agent. His older brother, Rodrigo, handles his daily schedule and public relations. His brother Matias and his sister Maria Sol run his charitable foundation.
We really need to analyze why that is so vital. When an athlete achieves that stratosphere of fame, the world tries to commodify them. They are pulled into a million different business deals, surrounded by people who never say no to them.
Right, building a wall of family members, people who knew him when he was a terrified, undersized kid taking hormone shots, he insulated his mind. The family business structure is basically a defense mechanism against the toxic reality of global celebrity.
That is so true. And you see that same discipline in how he treats his body, too. He isn't out there posting flashy, shirtless gym selfies online. His training regimen is highly specific,
The sources mention he avoids ego lifting.
which means he isn't trying to bench press massive weights just to look huge for the cameras.
Right. He focuses intensely on something called pillar stability.
Explain that mechanism for us. What is pillar stability?
It is the core strength that connects your hips to your shoulders. Think about it. When a 200-pound defender slams into his shoulder at a full sprint, his pillar stability is what allows his hips to remain level and his feet to stay under him.
So he trains for agility and durability, not for looks.
Exactly. But if we zoom out to look at the broader impact of his off-pitch life, the most profound element is definitely his philanthropy, his charity work.
The Leo Messi Foundation is established in 2007, and it is overwhelmingly focused on pediatric health and education, helping sick kids.
And this is not just a cynical PR exercise for a tax write-off. The financial commitment is staggering. He personally funded £26 million to build a dedicated children's cancer center in Barcelona.
He also established a network linking the Garrahan Hospital in Argentina with a hospital in Spain, funneling 100 million euros annually in grants to enhance pediatric cancer research and patient care.
You really have to look at the psychological connection here. Go back to that 10-year-old boy sitting on the edge of his bed with a needle.
Right.
A boy whose parents were terrified because they couldn't afford the medicine required for him to grow. A boy who had to rely on the charity of a foreign football club across the ocean just to achieve normal physical development.
Wow.
He internalized that profound medical trauma. And once he acquired immense wealth, he systematically dismantled that barrier for thousands of other vulnerable children. He essentially became the safety net that his own family desperately needed back in 1997.
That is incredibly moving. The legacy of Lionel Messi is not just the 91 goals in a year or the World Cup trophy. It is the fact that he survived the absolute meat grinder of professional sports, achieved godlike status, and somehow managed to keep his humanity entirely intact.
And he is continuing that legacy right now in the American era.
Yes. He moved to Inter Miami in 2023, completely revolutionized the profile of Major League Soccer, won the MLS Cup in 2025, and secured back-to-back MVP awards in 2024 and 2025.
Which naturally forces us to look ahead. The sources detail his explicit thoughts on the next chapter on life after he finally stops playing. And the most interesting revelation is that he has firmly stated he has absolutely no desire to become a coach.
Which, on the surface, sounds crazy. You have a guy whose brain processes the geometry of the pitch faster than a supercomputer. You'd assume he would be the ultimate manager, standing on the sidelines, moving players around like chess pieces. Why wouldn't he want to coach?
It seems counterintuitive until you analyze the emotional mechanics of coaching versus his personality type.
Okay, tell me more.
A modern football manager is essentially a politician, a psychologist, and a public speaker, all rolled into one. Coaching requires relentless, vocal micromanagement.
Right, you have to stand in front of a room of 25 massive egos, deliver rousing speeches, and constantly argue with the media in press conferences.
And that extroverted, combative emotional labor is the exact opposite of Messi's nature. He's deeply introverted. He has always led by creating magic in silence, not by shouting instructions from the sidelines.
Okay, when you frame it around emotional labor, that makes complete sense. He doesn't want to spend his 40s arguing with journalists, so what is his plan?
He favors the executive suite. He has expressed a strong desire to become a sporting director or, more notably, a club owner.
Like the David Beckham model in Miami.
Exactly. He wants to build an institution from the ground up, with a specific focus on developing youth academies and providing pathways for marginalized young players.
The poetry of that is almost too heavy to process. Think about it. You have a kid who was abandoned by his local club over $1,000 a month, a kid who desperately needed a European giant to take a massive, unprecedented risk on him, which ended with a contract scrawled on a dirty paper napkin.
Right.
And now, as he looks to the future, he wants to own the club. He wants to be the executive sitting across the table, ensuring that the next generation of undersized, overlooked kids gets the systemic support they need to survive.
Precisely. Ownership allows him to construct the exact foundational environment that saved his own career. He can dictate the philosophy, fund the medical departments, and protect the players, all while remaining in the background, out of the glare of the cameras.
It is a perfect alignment of his immense capital, his deep empathy for youth development, and his introverted personality. It really brings his entire journey full circle.
It does.
We started this deep dive looking at a fragile, 4-foot-tall boy in an industrial Argentine town, taking daily injections while his future hung by the thinnest of threads.
We saw that fate secured in a moment of sheer desperation in a tennis club.
We watched a quiet, homesick teenager transform into an uncontainable force, breaking tactical paradigms under Guardiola, shattering historical records, and enduring the suffocating weight of a nation's expectations to finally achieve absolute peace in Qatar.
He navigated the most intense pressure cooker in modern sports by anchoring himself to the people who knew him before the fame. And he weaponized his own childhood adversity to fund a philanthropic empire that alters the lives of children globally.
Which leaves us with one final, unavoidable thought to ponder. We know how he built his legacy, and we know he plans to transition into the owner's box. But I want you, the listener, to look at the broader landscape of the sport.
Yeah.
For the last 20 years, the tactical evolution, the financial models, and the emotional narratives of global football have all revolved around the gravity of this one man. When Lionel Messi finally hangs up his boots for good, how does a sport even begin to adapt to the absence of a player who didn't just participate in the game, but who fundamentally was the game?
That is a daunting and beautiful question to leave unanswered.
It really is. Well, thank you for joining the episode today. It has been an absolute privilege piecing together the deeply human mechanics behind the myth. We hope you enjoyed learning English with us through this incredible story.
Keep practicing, keep believing in your dreams, and we'll see you on the next episode of Football Legends.
Take care, everyone. Goodbye.